Hi, welcome to On Air. I'm Klara Syrewicz. In Denmark, Social Democrat Mette Frederiksen runs one of the EU's toughest immigration policies. In France, Marine Le Pen's far-right party has the highest number of gay MPs, about 25% of its elected officials. The old lines between left and right are blurring. Populism scrambles them further as extremes drift into the mainstream, from ISIS brutal deportation on the right to rigid gender and minority quotas on the left. Data shows polarization is at record levels and rage drives public debate. Though you don't really need statistics to see it, just open social media or even sit through a family dinner. My guest today is Bogusław Chrabota, former editor-in-chief of Rzeczpospolita, one of Poland's oldest and largest national newspapers, famous for keeping its distance from whichever political party dominates the day. Together, we'll discuss this new political ecosystem and how to make sense of it without losing our heads. Mr. Chrabota, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So I'm going to start this conversation with an example with Peanut the squirrel. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this story. Peanut the squirrel was a social media star owned by a man in New York, in contradiction to wildlife regulation, and he was euthanized. And then he became a symbol of the Democrats' overreach, and his death was even deplored by J.D. Vance himself. And to me, this story epitomizes the way the left and the right frame each other. If you think of the 70s, right, and how counterculture and working class movements were on the left, and everything that applied to obedience to rules and the establishment was more on the right, and especially the Christian right. Today, the way the left is being portrayed is bureaucratic, elitist, imposing COVID lockdowns, squirrel euthanasia. But the right is anti-systemic. It speaks for the working class man, for his freedom of expression and his freedom for self-determination, even if that freedom involves, I don't know, using Nazi symbols or contesting legally binding election. So without much further ado, do you think this is really something new, a new framework, or are there familiar tropes here?
I don't think we can speak about right and left in a traditional way. It was before which date? The crucial date was the fall of Iron Curtain, 1989, 1990. It was the crucial moment in the history of changes of left and right in Europe and in the States too. Why? Because before 1989, left was following two directions. First, these were classical social democracy. Yeah. In every country, I'm telling, of course, about the Western part of the world. Yeah, liberals in the state. I mean, Democrats. That was always related to social democracy. And the other part of left, these were communists, parties related with Moscow. After the failure of Soviet Union and the fall of Iron Curtain, communists disappeared. Yeah, but they were very much strong forces in Italy, France, also in England, maybe not in Germany and not in the States, but it was a very strong power in the Western politics and a dominating one in the East. In Poland, Czechoslovakia, DDR, Russia, there was no right. It was only the leftist movement related with dominating party, Communist Party from Moscow, yes? So 1989 and the fall of the Iron Curtain distracted completely the landscape of left and right geography in Europe. From this time, we have new left and the evolution of left towards different directions. For example, green parties. Okay, they appeared, in fact, in common politics in 90s, not before, yes? The city movements, also the part of the left, yeah? Communists vanished, but the left was spread into a number of fractions, parties, organizations, movement, etc. And what about the right side? What happened with the right side? Also, I mean, the homogenic right movement, let's say in Germany, Christian democracy, the dominating power on the right, was supported by, from one side, liberals, FDP, and the other groups, which were fractions before. In the States, the situation was completely different because there was no communists before 1989. But traditional Republican Party had some divisions inside, New Right and the alt-right and others. So it was not homogenic anymore after Reagan, in fact. So today, I think that we are just facing completely different meanings of right and left. And it's very difficult to say, for example, that AfD in German, this is right side. I'm not sure, because they are powered by social offer, yes, and social economy.
So national socialism.
So I think that today, yeah, it's much better to say that some so-called right, this is a social populism related with Christian values and the nationalism. If it's left or right, it's a matter of discussion. From one side, you have natural populism. From the other side, you have establishment parties. And that's the division that we must consider.
So in relation to what you said there's been an evolution since the 90s. And to me, the evolution was especially interesting and visible on the left, because this is where you see major changes. As you mentioned, the Greens enter the main fray of political life, but also you have the left borrowing many of the themes of the right with huge electoral successes across the world. So you have Bill Clinton, you have Gerhard Schröder, or you have Tony Blair. They are renouncing their left-wing working class roots. They're globalists, they're neoliberal, they very much dysregulate financial markets. So essentially the left moves to the right and then
to the center. And of course, left in Europe, always the policy of left parties was related to Brussels and integration and the matter of federalization of Europe. Yes, so left supported integration, and from the other side, you had as a counter proposition nationalism that was not present so intensively since the end of the Second World War. You know, the disaster of the war provoked the situation that nationalism was out of game for a long time, and it came back after 1989, and essentially from the East, because we had a kind of a vacuum of the right in eastern part of Europe before 1989. So the most dangerous and most intensive political offer came from nationalism. Again, the question if nationalism in the East and now also in the West, France, Germany, it's right side. It comes from the tradition of right, but it's far away from conservative ideas that were the general matter of the general pillar of ideological pillar of the right in the past.
But so they are doing what the left did in the 90s. They are appropriating more tropes from left right now.
Anti-establishment, that's, I mean, establishment and anti-establishment, this is one of the major and most important matters today.
So you mean populism
and non-populism, anti-establishment and establishment. This is I mean, a fundamental matter today in the world, especially European politics. And you have a mixture of others. For example, Poland. If we want to discuss the right side in Poland today, from one side you have Peasant Party, which is strictly conservative, with the traditional values, traditional axiology, etc. This is Kosiniak-Kamysz Party. We also find PiS, Populistic Party, as a part of the right. They are looking for some relations with alt-right in the States. They are just announcing and telling about themselves that they are right. But from my point of view, they are too much populistic to call them right, and too much social to define them as right. Yes? Mm-hmm. And you have also classic nationalists, Konfederacja, which I'm not sure if they are really right, because from one side they are just supporting free market ideas. From the second point of view, they are very much Christian and social too.
Yeah, they have libertarian also undercurrent.
Yeah.
That's another interesting thing. In the way the right today is borrowing these ideological bits and pieces from here and there are lots of fringe ideologies seeping into the right. You get this kind of salad bar situation where a lot of this is self-contradictory. You can be, I don't know, pro-gay and pro-Russia suddenly, or you can be a nativist and consider that state-funded kindergartens are wrong. Or you can be, like, most extreme example, and I'm thinking Elon Musk here, is you can be very socially conservative and have conservative views of the family, but then not allow for any regulation of the internet and have your kids essentially have access to AI tools that allow them to make a porn movie in 10 minutes, you know, if they wish so. So, you know, that kind of contradictory thing is all in there. So is there a point where this is going to implode?
You know, politics is the evolution. Populism is not a new phenomenon. It has been with us in politics for thousands of years. Now, I mean, politics has new tools, like internet, like social platforms, etc., etc. And making politics today, it's a new challenge. First of all, because of the marketing instruments you have. So you must take a choice of some important pieces of reality, pieces of programs, and glue them into one understandable for people, but far away from, former history definitions matter. So that's why I'm questioning very much the sense of using terms of left and right in a traditional sense today. And it doesn't mean that they are not taking the cloths of rightists or leftists. They are taking cloths. They are using, T-shirts with right and left. But what's inside, that's a combination of pragmatism, there's a combination of different ideas, goals, methods, instruments. But from the other hand, I'm not very much frustrated with this, that we are not using every age, every century, every era needs new definitions. And that's our challenge today, just to define this new politics in a new way.
One more question about how, you said something earlier, how there's a division between anti-systemic and establishment. Now, what puzzles me is how right-wing political figures, who are very much part of the establishment now, and I'm thinking Orban or Trump, for example, still manage to present themselves as being anti-systemic. How does that happen?
These are words only. It's of course shocking that Trump, who was just from the middle of elite, New York elite, who was very much establishment, convinced Americans that he is non-establishment politician because of his language. He was speaking And he is still speaking in a very easy way, understandable for everybody. So the language is an establishment, yes, but his identity, his role in politics is very much establishment. And now we have a new establishment. MAGA, this is establishment, nothing else. Yeah? So I think that there was a false communication, in fact, that we are non-establishment. They were establishment, and they will be establishment politicians all their life.
So now let's talk about how the shrinking center looks like.
I think that polarization is one of the most important tendencies in politics today, polarization. And it's not left-right polarization. It's populism, establishment, non-establishment, etc. That's a way of polarization. For example, Polish left today in Warsaw, in our parliament, it's pretty establishment. Yeah? They have a competition in Razem party that pretends to be non-establishment, but it is too. They are part of parliamentary life, they are getting money from state, etc., etc. So you have these instruments of polarization pretty exposed today in politics. And the place for centrists, for center parties, is very, very narrow. And we have politicians who come back every season with this promise that I will start a centrist party. They said no more polarization. We are just everybody of us. I mean,
well,
the
Macron
nation
did it in France as well, and successfully actually.
Yeah. So in his case, yes, he was very much pragmatic and liberal, Macron. Yes, but in Poland it was just a promise. It's a boring situation that we have a choice of two polarized parties. Let's make something for the central part of the scene. And in fact, all these guys lost. Today, and it's always the same tendency. After getting some chairs in the parliament, after, let's say, 1-2 years, they were losing support, ratings. Polls were just were showing that they are drawing in a political sense. So collapse after collapse, collapse after collapse, and it's very difficult today to be in the center, because what does it mean, center? How to define a center?
Yeah, the center is moving to the right again.
Yeah.
No? It is.
To the right and to the left, yeah? From one side you have...
the right is moving to the left, and the center is moving to the right.
So my answer and my honest belief is that it's very much difficult to find the party which will play the basic role of the central center that will give us a chance of balancing left and right.
Thank you very much for this conversation.
Very much abstract, but...
It's abstract,
yeah.
But I think we actually put some structure to it, at least in my mind. So thank you very much for this conversation.
Bardzo dziękuję. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us tonight. We return next week. Have a great evening.